Good morning, everyone. It is 10 o'clock now, and welcome to Creating a Social Media Strategy That Beats the Algorithms with Kat Stearns presenting. Uh, just going to, more people are joining us and as they're coming into the weight room, but I don't want to punish the punishable, I guess, as that old saying goes. So do want to open up the event and thank you for attending with land acknowledgement. We are presenting and connecting together on the unceded territory of the Stalo people, including the territories of the Kwantlen, Leqama, Matsqui, and Scowlitz Nation. And without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Kat to open up and do the session. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Paula. Welcome, everyone. And I myself would just like to acknowledge that I am presenting today from the land of the Stolos people. So welcome to Creating a Social Media Strategy That Beats the Algorithm. So we have a ton of content that we're going to cover today that is hopefully going to give you some direction on how you can really better utilize your social media, get a better understanding of what you can be doing to get more engagement and to hopefully grow your business as well. One of my goals through this session is that the social media landscape is constantly changing. So there's always these new fads and these new kind of quick wins that you can do. I'll discuss a few of them, but what I really want to be able to do is help you long-term be successful when it comes to social media. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about is basically the core of the platforms of what you can be doing today and even a year from now that's hopefully still going to give you the success that you're looking for. If you've attended any of the sessions that I've ever done in the past, I love being able to have engagement. I love being able to have conversations and helping to really help you get the most out of these sessions. So I really encourage you to use the chat that we have here in the session to post your questions or even to ask the group other questions as well. And I will be taking questions periodically and diving deeper and then having a Q&A session at the end as well. You can also raise your virtual hand if you really want to dive into something particularly. If you don't know how to access that, on your Zoom bar there, you'll notice that there's going to be a little section there that's going to be called emotions or reactions, and you'll be able to do it there. Or you can click onto the participant tab and find your name. And then next to that, you should see a raised hand. If you don't see either of those options, that just means that your Zoom account's probably not updated. And so you can, again, just use the chat. But I really want to make sure that you're able to get some of the questions that you have answered through this session. If it's something really particular, though, I might just leave it to the end so that we can dive it into a little bit more deep at the end of this when we have a bit more time. So a little bit about me before I jump in, because I know there's some new people joining us in this session. My name is Kat Stearns. I live here in Mission as well. I've been in the digital space for over 20 years. I started off in the music and entertainment industry, started working with BC Hydro, and then went into more of the corporate world. And then about 8 years ago, started my own business where I do a lot of work working with small businesses, delivering workshops, and I work a lot with Destination Canada and Destination BC as well. So a lot of really fun work that I love being able to help businesses like yourself in helping you to really get to know and understand how the whole digital space works. So today we're going to be walking through kind of 3 core elements when it comes to social media. Number 1 is really helping you to start think about your social media strategy. We're going to talk about the algorithm a little bit. This is a really big thing not a lot of people understand, is how exactly does that algorithm work, and then how you create that engaging content that works with the algorithm to get you to be successful in your content and in your posts. So let's dive straight in here. I love this caption here where it's this, if any of you have ever been in a situation where maybe you've got a campaign running, you're starting your business, it's coming into the fall, you're thinking about, hey, how am I going to start to grow my business again? What can I be doing? You run this great big campaign, and all of a sudden you think, hey, I probably need to throw it up on social media. I'm going to do just a quick Instagram post. And for a lot of us, when we're thinking about social media, that's maybe as far as it sometimes goes. It's just a quick little idea of like, oh, well, just quickly throw this up on social. And I want you to start to think about social as a little bit more than that. That social media is an ingredient. It's not the entree, but it's a really key piece. So when you're thinking about your bigger campaigns, your overall success of your business and the different things that you're doing, social media can be a really integral part, but it's not the entire puzzle to it. So you need to still be having some of maybe your traditional media. Maybe you need to be doing a couple of different types of digital marketing, but really understanding that social media can be a really key piece to your overall marketing. So my first question to you, and if you have a moment to even type this into chat, I want you to think about, why do you want to be on social media? What is it that social media is providing to you or to your business? Often I hear it's the place I just need to be because everybody's on it. Often it's maybe I need to drive more traffic to my website. I need to get more foot traffic. I need to get more exposure. A few of you are saying to connect with clients and spread awareness, drive more customers to us, get more business. Perfect. So when you're thinking about why you need to be on social media, you need to make sure that you are achieving those goals. And that's what we're going to talk about here. There's a lot of what I call gamification in digital marketing, and especially in social media. Often people get like really caught up in, hey, does my Instagram post have 1,000 people that have liked it and commented on it? But that isn't always a really true measure of success. If your key goal is to bring foot traffic into your business, those 1,000 people, if they're not local, then that's really not going to help you to achieve your goal. So as we're starting to think about this, think about, what is the goal that I want to achieve? And is this actually helping me to do this? So the key to any social media platform, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, you need to understand how to natively storytell for each platform. Each platform is something very unique and very different. Instagram is very visual focused. It's all about images, it's about video, it's about these really great visual pieces. Versus Facebook or Twitter, you can have some really great visual pieces, but it can also be just strictly text. Facebook and Twitter have a lot of links that go out, whereas Instagram can be a little bit more challenging for us to do that. Pinterest, Google My Business, a lot of these different platforms, they're very different. The worst thing that you can be doing as a business is creating one piece of content and then using a scheduling tool and having that exact same post go out absolutely everywhere. Now, I'm not saying if you have a caption and you want to post it everywhere, that's a bad thing. Where you run into problems is, say if you were to use a tool like a Hootsuite, or even having it connected from, say, your Instagram account to Facebook, or when you used to be able to do that to Twitter. When you craft a piece of content on Instagram and you tag people, you tag locations, those tags that you're using on that platform are very different than the tags that somebody might have for Facebook or for Twitter or for any other platform. So if all you do is you create it once and then you just click a button that says automatically share to these other platforms, your post isn't going to show up properly. So you really need to be thinking about taking that one piece of content, and if you want to share it everywhere, customizing it for each individual platform so that you're using the right tags, the right handles on Instagram, as well as the right ones on Facebook, and as well the right ones on every other platform that you're sharing. So this is the key thing that you want to be thinking about with that. So let's dive into probably the number one thing that most people always want to know, and that's understanding, how do the algorithms on these social platforms work? So there's three key components that every single algorithm looks at. There's a couple of exceptions that I'm going to talk about next, but there's about 200 different things that these platforms look at, and they're broken down essentially into these three different categories. So we'll use Facebook and Instagram as our examples as we discuss it because they're the most common, but this applies to LinkedIn, this applies to TikTok, this applies to a lot of the other platforms that are out there. So the three components are affinity, weight, and time. Affinity refers to the relationship that somebody has to your business or to your account online. So say, for example, you have a Facebook page or you have an Instagram account, and I happen to like your page, or I tend to follow you on social media. If I have a lot of my friends and family that I'm connected with on my personal network that also like your account, that's a strength of affinity. Another thing might be that if you happen to host events, you happen to share content and I am constantly engaging with it, or if I check in at your business, the more that I'm interacting or that my network around me is interacting with your business, the stronger of an affinity I have with your business. So that can be really helpful in helping to ensure that your content is going to be shown. The next component that the algorithm looks at is what we call weight. And there's two sides to weight. The first side is the type of content that you post. So in most cases, content that you can post on platforms are going to be static images, video, links, or text updates. So if we think about, say, for example, Facebook, because Instagram, you can't do just written text, but this applies to as well. What do you think the most dominant type of content right now on all of these social platforms are? So images, video, links, or content. Type into chat what you think it might be of those 4 different types. So we have a couple people saying images, a couple people saying video. Right now, video. Video is the #1 type of content that these platforms like. Surprisingly, it's live video or longer form video. Video kind of going past that 1 minute mark tends to perform best. Now, there is an exception to that if your audience is very much like they don't like to watch videos, they do prefer images with content that way, that can sometimes fall into it. But as a general rule, right now, the platforms tend to prefer video content. The second part of the weight is the engagement side. So when you think about how people can engage, there's people that can just read your content where they have no interaction at all, but they have that watch time. You have people that can leave comments, that can click the likes or the emojis, or that can share. So of the different types of way that they can engage, what do you think the platforms are looking for right now? So just viewing the content, clicking a link, commenting, or clicking the like or the emojis. What do you think is going to be the most? So Tammy says comment. Anybody else want to put a guess in there? Link, comment, commenting, click through as well. Commenting is the #1 thing that these platforms are looking for. The key thing being comments with 5 words or more. These platforms are so intelligent, they can tell when you are leaving a comment that is 1 word versus 5 words, or if you're having a conversation with people on your posts. So Facebook came out about a year ago and said that they wanted to try and shift the perspective that people were having on their channels. That's being Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. And they really wanted to try and come back to being a community-based platform like they used to be, and trying to get away from a lot of the hype that they had with like fake news and a lot of other things. So they have put a lot of weight on content that engages and has conversations. So if you can be posting content that creates conversation with people leaving comments, that's really good. Now, saying that, you want to be careful that you're not posting content that is, again, kind of gamified. So an example of this might be, which do you like, option A or option B? That's something that's a little bit gamified because the responses are going to be either A or B. And so the algorithms know that when you have a lot of people leaving those same types of responses, that it's not authentic conversation. So really trying to think about ways that you can ask open-ended questions, or you can just start to get a bit more personal with your audience to get them to want to engage. That's going to be the most important thing. Next to commenting is going to be sharing. Sharing used to be the #1 thing that these platforms look for, but it's not anymore. It's commenting. And that is only increasing. This is one of the reasons why we're also seeing a huge increase in groups on Facebook and now on LinkedIn as well, is because they're really trying to create this community with it as well. So then after that, we get into what we call time, or better known as time decay. This is the lifespan of your post, how long your content is going to live online, and the estimated exposure that it's going to get depending on the other key factors. So does anybody want to take a guess how long the optimal time for a post is? So how long from when you post a piece of content till the algorithm is going to basically determine what your success is. 8 to 12 hours we have as a guess. Anybody else want to put a guess in there? Under 24 hours, 10 minutes, 3 hours. So within the first 3 hours of a post going online, the algorithm will determine its success. So you really need to be thinking about how you're timing your content to get engagement. The average lifespan of a post on social media is 48 hours. So if you're thinking about planning out your content and scheduling it, you want to be thinking about, okay, if I post it right now, am I going to start to see people coming more online or less online over these next couple of hours? And if they're probably going to be jumping offline, you might want to adjust your timing because that's going to start to impact your overall success of your post. So that's how your content's going to be affected by when you're posting online. So how you want to think about this algorithm is you want to take all of these different things into consideration. Now, it's really tough to get everything perfect. And as you start to make shifts into different types of content or doing these different types of things, you might see little dips, but then they'll come back up. So how this would work is that, say, for example, you have your Instagram account and you decide that you have 100 people that follow you and you're going to post a piece of content. Can anybody guess what the average reach is on just a general piece of content for most accounts? So what percentage of followers are going to see your content whenever you post? 1/3, 10%, 10%, 20%. You are all going to be very surprised. 3 to 5%. That is the average reach that organic content gets on social platforms. So 3 to 5% of your audience is who's going to see that. So if you have 100 people that are following you on any given platform, only 3 to 5% of them are going to see your content. How the algorithm will then play into that is that when you post a piece of content and it goes out to, say, 5 different people and they see it and you have maybe one person that likes it and maybe another person that leaves a comment, the algorithm goes, oh, it looks like some people are engaging with this content. Let's roll it out and have it go to 7%. And then if more people engage, they're going to push it out and it's going to go to maybe 10%. And it's going to keep increasing as more people engage with that content. So the more content that you create that gets great engagement, the greater reach you can have. So what can sometimes happen is that these accounts that they create really good, really strong content that people watch, they engage with, and that are really, really starting to bring a community together, their organic reach might be closer to a 20% because they're constantly having great content. And so what can happen is that as you start to post and you get great content, your what they call it's called edge rank is kind of the ranking that they call it in social, is that starts to increase so that your organic reach goes from that 3 to 5% to now getting into those every time you post, maybe 15% or 25% of your audience are going to see your content because the algorithm knows you produce great content. So what are some things you want to be thinking about with this is that, number one, you want to be very selective as to what you're posting. That sometimes posting multiple times a day is not going to be beneficial to you if it's not great content and people aren't loving it. Because if you're just posting a lot of content, what also happens with this time decay is that when you post another piece of content, so say, for example, it's Tuesday morning, you posted something at 9 a.m. and then you say, oh, I need to post something else at noon. The algorithm looks at that and says, oh, they posted something else. This old content at 9 a.m. must not be as relevant anymore. We're going to stop showing that and we're going to show this new piece of content more. So you're actually going to do yourself harm the more that you're posting. So really being very cautious of what you're posting and what I like to call posting with purpose. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. So any questions before we kind of move on from this? I know this is always a really big piece for a lot of people to kind of take in and to understand. And I see Ashley asked a question, would that be at a given time or overall? So just clarify, Ashley, because I'm not sure when you asked that. referring back to the reach statement. So that is at any given time. So if you're going to be posting at noon today, depending on what your history is from posting, on average, most accounts will only see that 3 to 5%. If you're somebody that your content tends to get really strong engagement, you might have more of a 10 to 15% organic reach. But if you start to maybe produce poor content, that would start to drop down. Hopefully that makes sense. How important do you think hashtags are for Instagram posts and our following going? Okay, perfect, great question. We're actually going to get to that, Amanda. So we'll talk about some of that. Since algorithms change all the time, is there a place where we can research the current trends? So the great thing is that algorithms do change all the time, but they're little tiny tweaks. This core piece that I've just covered with you, this is something that has actually been around for about the last 5 years, and the core of it does not change. The things that do change are, like I was talking about, what has more weight, a comment versus a share. Those types of things, they tend to get weighted slightly differently when a new platform kind of releases a new thing. So for example, Instagram came out with Reels. Reels started to take over live video. So if you are posting Reels versus live right now, Reels are getting more exposure than live is, because there's not a lot of people producing Reels, real content, and Instagram's really wanting to push Reels. So those types of things do change, but essentially these 3 core pieces are always there. It's just the little nuances within them will always change. Unfortunately, the platforms do not tend to release this information as to what performs better. But there is people that are consultants to these organizations and that do a lot of research that tend to break these down to tell you what tends to work best. If you're looking for somebody that is probably, she's called the queen of Facebook, is Mari Smith, Marismith. She's actually Canadian that now lives in the US, and she is a consultant to Facebook and Instagram. And she tends to write a lot of content, and she tends to break down what she's heard from working with Mark Zuckerberg and a lot of the team at Facebook, what their plans are moving forward in the future, as well as what changes and what type of content they tend to favor. So she's a really good person that you probably would maybe want to follow if that's who you're looking to do that. But unfortunately, these platforms don't post it to say, this is the type of content that we tend to put a lot of weight in. It's kind of these third-party people that are breaking down what they're seeing and how that's reflected in the algorithm. So hopefully that helps a little bit there as well too. Great questions. So let's move on here and talk a little bit more about the algorithm. So I'm kind of breaking it down to kind of the essentials that applies to most platforms. There is 2 exceptions I do want to highlight. If you happen to use Twitter, Twitter does not have the same algorithms that we just talked about. Twitter is specifically a real time. They did start to test it out with an algorithm of who you follow and kind of like your preferred content. And there was a really big pushback on the platform. People love the real time that Twitter had. So Twitter is a real-time platform, meaning if you post something, it's going to go out to all of your followers in real time. What happens with that though is that there's a lot of content that can get produced, and so your content can sometimes get lost. The average lifespan for a piece of content on Twitter is 30 minutes. So that's when that if you are on Twitter, it's quite okay for you to be reposting content in the same articles and the same information, because that content does not tend to have a really long lifespan. The other exception is Pinterest. Pinterest still follows a lot of the essence of the algorithms. However, it does not have a time decay, meaning that if you have a pin, Pinterest really doesn't care if you have that pin that's been posted onto your account today or 6 months ago. If somebody stumbles across it through a search or through a hashtag and they find it and they repin it, it will give your content life again. So Pinterest really is a really great platform that if you're trying to drive traffic and you're in that kind of Pinterest world where your content really fits well into that. So that's like cooking, that's attire, there's a lot of different things that can fall into Pinterest. It's a really great platform because the lifespan of your content is much longer than the other types of platforms where you've only got a short amount of time that your content is going to exist for. Pinterest has a much longer lifespan with that. And thanks for posting the link to Mari Smith. That's great. So let's talk a little bit, now that we've talked about the algorithm, some really important things that you want to be thinking about. So often I hear a lot of people saying how you need to be everywhere online. And I really find that that's maybe not the best strategy, because in order for you to produce proper content on the specific platforms, it takes time and energy. And for a lot of you, you're small businesses. You don't have a huge amount of time. You're doing this off the corner of your desk while you're trying to run your business, and it doesn't always work. So what I want to be able to break it down to you is starting to think about how you're going to select the different accounts that you're going to want. There are tons of different platforms out there, and they're constantly being updated. Some are getting removed, some are getting a refresh, and then other ones are joining. What I want you to start to think about is actually dividing your content in what we call primary and secondary platforms. If you've attended any of the workshops I've done before, I've talked about this in the past. So what does this mean? So primary accounts are the accounts that really help you with your business. So a lot of you posted in here about what's going to be really critical for you and why you're on social media. Most commonly, it's you wanting to build awareness, you're wanting to be able to drive traffic to your website or to foot traffic. So what accounts are going to help you to do that as much as possible? For most of us, our primary platforms are Facebook and Instagram for businesses. Some of you might have LinkedIn, or you might have another one. But what you want to think about is picking one or two, or if you have a ton of time, 3 platforms. These are your primary platforms. These are the platforms that you are on there every single day. You're seeing how things are changing. You're looking at the conversations. You are engaging with your audience. You are trying to produce really great engaging content. And that's where you're going to be diving in and spending your time. These are the platforms that you're not just throwing something up there. You're really taking the time to think about how you're going to post and what that's going to look like. From here, you have what we call our secondary accounts. So these might be platforms that are essential to your business. So for an example, Google My Business. Any of you that are local businesses here is such a critical platform for you to have set up to be able to help you to get found locally, to show up in local search. It's great for local SEO, and it's also going to be a really key source that a lot of your customers are going to go to find out where you are and if you're open. As well, you might think about, I might want to practice or play around with a new platform like a Snapchat or a TikTok or maybe Pinterest or something else. And then you might decide, I also want to have LinkedIn. LinkedIn is considered the 3rd most authoritative website in all of the internet. So if you are somebody that you tend to have a lot of people Google you, like Google your name, it's going to be one of the best websites for you to have your name and your information to be able to show up, because Google considers it a very authoritative website. So with these secondary platforms, you might set them up and then only check them once in a while, or you might be testing things out to say, is this platform going to work for my business? But you're not spending as much time here as you are on those primary accounts. And again, for the secondary, you might only have a couple of them that you're going to have with that. And by identifying your primary and your secondary accounts, this is going to help you to start to focus on where you're going to spend your time and what you really need to focus on to achieve those business goals versus just accounts that we can kind of get lost and sucked into. So that's what you really want to be thinking about, and really thinking about those primary accounts just like you would any other type of marketing. If you were to go do a newspaper ad or a billboard, you would want to see the return on that. And so the same thing with your social media accounts. If you're not seeing the return, it's an opportunity to kind of check in to say, why am I not why I'm not seeing this? What do you need to be changing? Or do we need to look at the platform differently? So I see a couple of quick questions. I'm just going to jump over here and just see what people are saying. So would creating, utilizing the accounts not be beneficial for backlinking, discovering ads for Google? So creating and utilizing accounts for backlinking, you're not going to have as strong of a backlink from social media yes, it can be helpful, but it might be nice if you want to create all the accounts and then you just kind of make them private, or you put on there that you're currently not active on these accounts. You can do that as a strategy. However, you just don't want to have these platforms created and then not really try and do any type of work with it, or trying to just post everywhere, because it's not going to be beneficial. So thinking about the time with it, there's different accounts. So for like backlinking, like looking at your directories, like TripAdvisor, Google My Business, Bing, those are really good ones to do. So, it can be beneficial, but again, just trying to think about your time and why exactly you're going to use it. If SEO is a big thing, you might want to create some accounts for that. But if you're using it strictly to try and grow your business on social, really being specific on those. Hopefully that helps answer your question, Ashley. So with Instagram, is it better to have one account that everyone gets posted to, or several smaller accounts that different things under the umbrella? Example, different accounts for different events with an organization. So great question. The short answer is it depends. What you want to be thinking about is who your audience is. So I was working with a business, and they had essentially 4 businesses underneath their umbrella. They had a restaurant, they had a separate winery, and they also had a local market, and they had an Airbnb. And they were trying to do everything under one umbrella. And it got to be a little bit messy, and it got to be kind of really difficult. In their case, it wasn't hugely beneficial to pull everything out, but what they looked at was to say, okay, what audiences that they're targeting tend to fall into the same businesses? And also what type of content is going to be similar versus what is going to be different? Because what you want to be thinking about is that if you're going to be posting the same message on multiple accounts, that's probably not going to be beneficial. Or if you're having the same audiences for the different services, now you're just trying to build all the exact same accounts, and it's a lot of effort. So it can work to have them all under one. And by doing different types of strategies to try and separate that and to target the right audiences. But it's really going to depend on the business and really depend on your strategy with it. So Marilyn, if you want to talk a bit more about that afterwards, we can have a bit of a conversation, just because it depends on a couple of different factors to help with that, but it's always a great question. So continuing on with this, one of the tools that can sometimes be really helpful for those of you that are wanting to have some consistency across your platforms, or if you're looking at starting up new platforms, or in the case of Ashley, if you're doing this as part of your SEO strategy for backlinking, what's really beneficial, especially with SEO, is you want to have some consistency. So if you've got your company name for Facebook, you want to try and have that same name on your other platforms like Instagram, Twitter, and everywhere else you are. So this is a free tool called Name Check, and yes, it's spelled correctly. It's just CHK. It's a free tool that you can use, and you can put in your company name or your handle, and it will show you where your usernames are available on all of the different websites and platforms. So it's really just a one-stop shop that you can come in here, you can find your name, and then be able to find out where that username is available. That way you're not going onto a platform, registering under a username, then finding out it's not available somewhere else, and then having to go and redo the process. So it's a really simple and easy tool for you to be able to use and do everything all at once. So what you want to be thinking about is that as you're starting to look at these different platforms, thinking about where they're all leading. So everything that you're doing online as your strategy should all be driving either back to your website or will be driving back to your physical business. A lot of people think that because they have a social platform like Facebook or Instagram and it's doing great right now, they don't need a website, and that's not the case. When I used to work in the music industry, we focused a huge amount of time on MySpace. If any of you can remember that platform, we spent thousands of dollars helping to build up audience profiles for different artists we work with. And where is MySpace today? It doesn't exist. And we've seen that already with some other platforms. And so we don't know where Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and all these other platforms are going to be in 5 or 10 years from now. They may be here, or they may be in a completely different place. And also from what we're seeing here, before Facebook, we used to get a huge amount of reach, and we used to not have to pay for ads or any type of advertising to get that exposure. But now Facebook is continuing to pull back the amount of people that see our content organically, and we're having to get more creative, or we're having to use advertising to help to get that exposure. So as these platforms change, you want to make sure that you have a place like your website that you fully control. So regardless of what happens in the digital space, you always have a place that you can be able to send people, and people can find the information that you want them to find. So it's really important that no matter what you're doing outside in the other digital spaces, you are always having a website that leads people back to it. So let's talk a little bit about, again, how your message is being consumed, and then the type of content that you want to be creating to help you to get engaging content. So as you start to look at how you navigate social media, and just think about last time you either went onto your computer or on your phone and you're consuming content. We need to kind of switch our mindset a little bit and kind of put on that consumer hat and think about how our content is being created. People are seeing your messages and your posts next to people getting married, people going on vacation, people announcing pregnancies, people sharing their latest updates. So they're seeing your messages in between their friends and family. For us as the businesses, we look at our grid, we look at our feeds, and we go, oh, I posted about this 2 days ago, I should probably post about this next. And we look at our own little platforms on our Facebook page or Instagram or LinkedIn, and we go, what's my sequence of posting and what do I need to be posting next? However, as we've talked about, not everybody sees your content, and they're seeing your messages mixed in with personal content. So we need to be thinking about how your content's going to stand out and how it's going to fit into that conversational tone that they're experiencing. And so even thinking about how and why you go on social media and understanding how the different platforms might change and vary can be really helpful to help you as the business to create content. So as I talked about, it's really important to what I call post with purpose, really ensuring that you're not posting just to post, that you want to be posting content that's going to be purposeful, that's going to help to support the algorithm. So we've created a formula that we like to call the 4 E's of engaging content. So it's not that your post needs to include one of every single of these categories, but they're key things to think about that in general, regardless of what the algorithms are doing, these categories tend to always perform well with the algorithms. And we're going to dive a little bit more into each of them. The 4 categories are educate, engage, empower, and entertain people. So I'm going to walk you through some examples of what this might look like. So educate. This is a really big piece of content that is becoming more and more popular on social. You see this especially on TikTok. You see this on Instagram Reels and Instagram Stories. You see this through articles on LinkedIn, on Facebook. It's just becoming a bigger piece of content. So it's about education. And one of the biggest philosophies that people are starting to kind of come to is what they call they ask, you answer. So this is a quick photo here of a gentleman by the name of Marcus Sheraton, who is a friend of mine that wrote a book called They Ask, We Answer. And it's a really simple philosophy that when somebody asks a question about your business or your product, that however you would reply to that person, you create content around that, whether that's a social media post or whether that's a blog or something more in line. And this is type of content that's very valuable because in general, when one person asks a question, somebody else is probably wondering that same question. And even if it's a question that you have been asked 100 times, there's still people out there that still have that question. So this is something that you can be doing simply either through blog content or through social media posts. We tend to do this a lot. We run a lot of the social media for artisan log homes, and we create a ton of articles that we post online on the website or as well in social media that tends to ask and answer questions that most people have about building custom log homes. And even in the other businesses we've worked with, we tend to say, what are the top 10 questions that people are always asking you? Because that's the type of content you want to be creating because that's what they're looking for. So this education can be about simply just answering their questions. It may be that you're going to be doing more detailed content like ebooks or downloads or tool sheets, or maybe it's just you doing a simple video that is talking about your product or service, providing some insight as well. A lot of how-to is also very popular for people. So one thing that we love to do is to encourage businesses to make a list of every question that you've ever been asked and start creating content around that. This alone can be a really great way for you to get a lot of great ideas of how you can be able to create content. The next one is engage. So this is really about creating content that engages your community. Whether this is doing repurposed content, whether you're working with maybe an influencer, or whether you're doing user-generated content, or if you're just asking questions or trying to get people to engage, or if you're tagging people. One of the biggest things that the algorithms look for in this engagement, in addition to comments, is, are you also including other businesses in the conversation? So when you can be tagging people in your content, this is very helpful. Now, saying that, they need to be a part of this content. Facebook and Instagram both have rules set up that if the content that you're posting about does not include that individual or business, either in the storyline or in the image, that you are actually violating their policy by tagging them in it. So a lot of people used to just tag a bunch of businesses in hopes that they would see their content when they post it. They're trying to really stop people to do that, and you can actually get penalized by doing that. So really being smart of how you're going to engage people, whether that's through tagging or if you're trying to mention them in the content that you're posting. And sometimes it's just creating engaging content. So one of the things that we tend to find to be extremely successful for businesses is posting a Meet the Team series. So for any of you that have large teams of people, or even if it's just one or two of you, every once in a while, we tend to do it about once or twice a year, putting content together that is a Meet the Team series that invites people to know who are the faces behind the business. Especially over the last year that we've had, a lot of people haven't had the opportunity to meet face to face. And so giving them the opportunity to meet and introduce the people that they're working with, that they're talking to on social media, that they're talking to via email or on the phone, and a little bit of a personal story of who they are. This type of content tends to be one of the most engaging pieces of content that we ever create, is this Meet the Team series, because they love to see real people that they know that they've been working with, and it creates a huge amount of engagement that people tend to really resonate with and want to have conversations around. When you talk about empower, this can be something, especially when we're going through tough times in the world and in society, to really help motivate people to take action or to inspire them, and to really just help to stand up for a cause. And so I do a lot of work with a nonprofit in Abbotsford called the Crystal Gala, which helps to raise money for the Breast Health Center in Abbotsford. And a big thing that we really try to do is we try to bring awareness for men and women to do self-exams and to know that there's support always available. And it can be a really heavy and hard topic sometimes. So we really try to do it in a way that is empowering, that has a little bit of humor in it, while at the same time is also really trying to encourage people to take action, whether that's tell a friend or to do it themselves. And so thinking about what it is that you can be doing. Maybe if you have a product line that is more sustainable or natural, you're telling them to make the switch. Maybe if it's about empowering people to shop and support local businesses. So whatever it is there a way that you can kind of use your business to empower? I know a lot of local businesses here have also stepped up to be looking at ways to be able to donate or to bring supplies for those that have been fighting the fires in the interior. So maybe there's something that you're doing in your community that you're trying to empower people to take action with. This can always be a really big thing where people are part of a bigger cause and can really help to get that momentum moving as well. And then the last one to talk about is the entertain. When we think about why we go onto social media so often, a lot of the time it's to just get away from our day-to-day. It's to get away from work, from maybe the busyness we have with our families and kids. And it's just to kind of check out for a little bit and to just be entertained. So sometimes it's just as simple as putting together a quick little video or a couple of images, a funny story, or something that just allows them to escape for that moment. This is a video that was put together by Revelstoke Mountain Resort. And it was a really simple video that they shot that was just done with a GoPro that was mounted onto someone's head. And it just showed them coming down the mountain on this roller coaster. And I don't know if you can see it, but this video got 50,000 shares and over 26,000 likes and engagements on it. And it was such a simple video that was put together, but it really helped people to give a sense of what it was like to go down this coaster. And so something as simple as that can really help to just entertain people and can take off as well. So we've got about 15 minutes left, but what I want to be able to do here is to walk you through 7 strategies that are going to help you to get more exposure with your content. So we've talked a little bit about kind of the 4 E's of social media. Now I'm going to give you some more specific strategies of what you want to be thinking about and what you can be doing. So number 1, and Amanda had brought this up as well, is using hashtags. Most platforms allow you to use hashtags. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, TikTok, a lot of these use hashtags. So hashtags can be a really great way for you to gain exposure or to build context. A couple of key things you want to be thinking about though is that not all hashtags are equal. So I've broken these hashtags down into 3 categories. The first one is branded hashtags. Now, for some of you, you may not have this. A branded hashtag is a hashtag that you have created for your business, or it's been created around a campaign. So an example of this might be the hashtag I love mission campaign. So that one would be one that maybe the chamber and a couple of business here that's very branded, it's very specific for their business. And so that's something that you might have. If you're doing a big campaign or you're asking people to tag you in content, that's a good example of how you might use a branded hashtag. Another example of a branded hashtag is any of you that have ever gone to Fieldhouse, they've got a hashtag that's, I think it's called Friends of Field or Friends of Fieldhouse, something like that. That's their branded hashtag, that if you are at Fieldhouse, they want you to use that hashtag. That's their branded content. They search specifically on that hashtag. Then you have local hashtags. Those are hashtags that are more local focused that are going to help for the local community. So this might be something like hashtag Mission BC, hashtag Fraser Valley. Again, the hashtag I love mission, that could fall into that as well. These are ones that you know local people are searching for and are looking for content and are following these hashtags. You want to have about 40 to 60% of your hashtags to be that local ones. Then you have broader hashtags. These might be something that are global. So that could be like hashtag farmhouse, hashtag love, hashtag fall time. What broad hashtags, a lot of people tend to use them, and where they're not good is that the hashtag fall, it can be used here in Mission, it can be used in LA, it can be used in Europe, it can be used anywhere. So if your goal of your business is to really drive local traffic and you're using a hashtag fall, that doesn't mean that local people are going to see that hashtag. It means that anybody worldwide will see that. As well, it's a popular hashtag. And so what will happen is that you might be at the top of the algorithm for 3 seconds, but because it's so popular, you'll very quickly fall down and you won't actually be seen under that hashtag. Versus a local hashtag, it's being used by local people. It might be not used as much. So you have a longer opportunity to stay at that top of the feed for that hashtag. As well, it's going to be attracting the right audience that you're looking for. So depending on the platform that you're using, you can use different amounts of hashtags. If you're using Instagram, you can use up to 30 hashtags. However, I recommend really being specific with the hashtags you're using and maybe only using 10 to 15. On Facebook, you can use hashtags, but they're used a little bit differently. And it's recommended that you tend to only use 1 to 3. On Twitter, you're very limited in the amount of words that you can use in your captions. And again, it's a recommendation of 1 to 3. LinkedIn, you can use a little bit more, and they're a little bit more used than they are on Facebook. And again, you're kind of recommended to use anywhere from about 3 to 5. And then Pinterest and all of them have different amounts as well. But really thinking about the hashtags, clicking on the hashtags that you're posting, seeing what do they represent, making sure that they're going to align with the image or the content you're posting, and really helping to ensure that they're going to actually get the results that you're looking for. Don't use them just to get that broad exposure to go to anyone in the world. Because yes, you'll get a lot of people maybe liking your content, but likes don't drive business if they're not the right likes to your business. So you really want to be thinking about, are you attracting the right audience with your hashtags? The next thing that you want to be doing, and we talked a little bit about this with the time decay, is really make sure that you're scheduling your content. So Facebook has made it really simple and easy that you can actually schedule content on Facebook and Instagram directly on the platform. So you can do that both from a mobile device or from your desktop. Twitter also has a scheduling tool in the back end. LinkedIn does not, and a few of the other ones don't. So you still might have to use a third party for a lot of it. But again, really starting to think about when and how you're going to be scheduling your content. So this really falls into that time decay that we talked about. So you want to be thinking about, if I'm posting this at 8 or 9 o'clock at night, is my audience going to see it? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, they're probably not going to see it, then you might want to actually look at scheduling that during a different time. It's going to depend on your business and who you are. In general, popular times to post are going to be early in the morning, around lunchtime, and then into the evening at around that 7 p.m. mark. Those tend to be the most popular times, but again, it may change and vary for your business. And you also need to be thinking about that 3-hour mark that you have for your content. So if you're going to be posting around noon, that's going to give you a good 3 hours within the day to have your content get that exposure. So we've talked about this already a little bit, but it's really about engage, engage, engage. Within your content, really try to post content that is going to spark conversation. It might be a captivating image, it may be asking and posing a question, and then really trying to get people having conversations back to you. The biggest thing that you need to do as a business owner on social media, anytime that somebody comments, you need to comment back. By doing that, you are validating that person that's left that comment, and that's hopefully going to get them to feel a bit more affinity with you and hopes that they are going to comment on a future post. So that's the biggest thing that you want to be doing as a business, is really trying to find ways to engage. One thing that you can also do as you start to get more engagement on your content, this works only on Facebook at this stage, but hopefully we'll see this in future as well, is that if you take a look at this post here, you'll notice that there's 86 reactions and 4 comments. If I happen to click on that 86 on that post, I'm going to see this pop up, and it's going to show me all of the people that have liked, heart, or like put a reaction to this post. I can then go down and I can actually invite people that have liked this post but do not like my page. So this is a free way for you to get more followers to your account. And what can happen is that sometimes people like a piece of content, but they don't realize that they're not following your page, or maybe they would like to follow your page. So you can send an invite to that person in hopes that they're going to now follow your page as well, and there's no charge. You can only do this for people that have liked or put a reaction to your post. This doesn't work for people that have shared or that have put comments on it. So this is just another thing that you can do as you start to get people to engage with your content more, to be able to start to get them to hopefully like and follow your page as well. The number 4 thing is to start to think about video content. This can be very scary and very overwhelming for people. Video content doesn't mean that you have to be in front of the camera. There's a lot of things that you can be doing that doesn't require you to be in front of it. It can be maybe just taking a quick view of the store that you're in. It can be a quick view of a recent project you've completed, or I'll share a couple of tools that can help you to create content as well. But video content is something that Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, all these platforms are really starting to push more and more. And so starting to play around with video content. And this is probably only going to increase as we start to see other platforms unfold as well too. A couple tools that can help you to create video content. One is called Animoto. So this is a paid service, but you can create really great videos. They have stock images, stock music, stock everything. So if you wanted to do like a really great fun promotional video, you can use a bunch of their stock content, or you can upload your own images and you can create a video that is just from still images. As well as Canva there's a free and a paid version where you can create really great graphics, but now you can also animate a lot of those graphics as well too. So maybe you've got a post that's got some words on it and you can animate the words to come across, and the social platforms will read that as a video because it's got that motion. So those are things that you can be doing that can kind of help you to create some video content without getting you in front of the camera. The biggest change that we've seen probably this past year is really focusing on the real content. In a recent report done by Forbes, they actually found that accounts that tended to have scheduled photo shoots and very staged content started to perform less than people that had real authentic photos. The report had basically stated that people were getting very tired of seeing the same types of layouts, the same types of images that people were taking and were just imitating one another, and that it was becoming kind of very plain content, even though it looked great, that it was really becoming stale. And so they found that people that were taking photos that still looked good, but that didn't have all of the prep behind it, were actually starting to perform better than these really overly staged pieces of content. So this is something that we're starting to see this trend start to take place, where people are really tired of not having kind of that real authentic feel. And so if this is something that you've maybe struggled with, feeling like you're not producing this like perfectly staged content, that actually could be a really great benefit to just be very authentic and to still have great lit and well looking images, but not being like perfectly staged can be very helpful to it. Number 6 is utilizing stories. So stories are continuing to increase. Stories tend to get more watch time on Instagram than the feed itself. So stories can be a great way to highlight maybe a post that you have, draw people back to your feed, or it may be your great way of being able to create content right there versus posting and having something live on your feed. There's a lot of people that I know that they might post on their feed once or twice a month, but they're on stories every couple of days. And stories, because it's only there for 24 hours, it allows you to maybe not have that perfect curated image. It allows you to be a little bit more organic, and because it's not going to be there forever. So this might be a really great way for you to start to kind of practice and start developing more content without having it to be perfectly manicured. And then the final one to kind of pull it all together is to make sure that you're using your analytics. I run a digital program with Destination BC. And one of the things that we do is we do this really big audit with a lot of customers to actually look at how their social media platforms are performing versus what they're actually seeing on the return. So are people actually purchasing off of their website, or are they coming through as walk-in traffic, and how are they finding them? And one of the biggest things that we've noticed is that how successful a social media platform is with engagement and likes and all of that doesn't always translate to the actual dollars in the bank, whether that's people purchasing online or them coming physically into a business. So using your analytics, Facebook analytics, Instagram analytics, every single social platform has an analytics tool, as well as you can use other tools like Google Analytics, which is free, or there's other platforms out there too. But getting an understanding as to how your platforms are actually performing in conjunction to the goals you have for your business. And that can be very insightful for you to maybe realize like, hey, I'm seeing all of this action happening here on social. Is that really translating to the results you want to see on your website or your in-store? So using analytics to help you understand that is a really key thing. One more quick question here. Do Facebook stories have the same priority as Instagram stories? At this stage, Facebook is trying to push them out more, but Instagram stories are far more successful than Facebook stories. Part of that reason too is that a lot of people connect their Instagram stories to Facebook. So a lot of the stickers, the tags, the links, the things like that that people put on their Instagram stories don't work on Facebook. And so people tend to not watch the Facebook stories, and it kind of creates that cycle. So Facebook is trying to make some changes there so that they'll be a little bit more cohesive, and so that you'll be able to do some of the same things on Facebook stories as you can on Instagram. But right now, the way that it's set up, Instagram stories are way more successful than Facebook. So that's what you really want to be thinking about with everything on social. My biggest suggestion to you though, from everything that we've talked about, is that the biggest thing you need to be doing is just testing for your own platform. That a lot of what we talked about are kind of the general rules that the platforms are looking for, but there is always exceptions. There's always exceptions that people may like images on your account more than they like video. There's always exceptions to those things. So start playing around, start trying to do different things. You're never going to break anything. It's just about getting started. That's one of the ways that I learn, is about every couple of months, I go into the back end of Facebook and I start clicking through each tab to see what it does. These platforms aren't really good at communicating a lot of changes and updates and how things work. So a lot of it really comes down to people discovering it on their own. And so by just trying to test and see what's going to work for your business, that's going to be the best way for you to get started. So we're just over the 1 hour, but we have additional time. I'd love to open up now to any questions that people have about your business or about what we've covered to really help you to get a better understanding at this time. So if you happen to jump off, I just want to say thank you so much for joining. It's been a pleasure. I hope that you've learned something from this session, and I'll open it up for questions. If you have any questions, you can type them into chat, or you can raise your virtual hand, and I'm happy to help you from there. So Amanda just asked, is Google Analytics found with Google Ads? So Google Analytics and Google Ads are two separate platforms. So Google Analytics is going to work separate from your Google Ads. However, you can link the two accounts together. But if you have Google Ads or where you're running your YouTube ads, that's a different platform than Analytics. There's Analytics, as well as there's also Google Search Console. So there's a lot of different Google products out there. And actually, Paula and I were just talking earlier today about possibly looking into some sort of Google training too, because there's a lot of different Google platforms out there. But yeah, Analytics is different than Ads and different than Console. Great question. Anybody else have any additional questions? It's a lot of information to cover, I know. Oh, I see one up here too as well. Does reposting relatable and funny memes help a social strategy? It definitely can. So again, depending on your audience, any type of content that might resonate with your audience can be helpful. So a great thing that you might want to consider doing is finding 2 or 3 competitors or businesses that are similar to you, and go and look at their website, go and look at their social media, see what they're posting, see what people engage with. Or if you've been posting memes in the past and people tend to resonate with that, that might be a really great thing for you to do and to post about. The big thing you want to be thinking about though is making sure that you don't create a type of content that engages so much with people and it starts to attract an audience that's not your business audience. That's the biggest thing you want to be thinking about. But if memes are a good thing, that you're creating memes that are related to your business or your industry, or if they're just a random funny thing that gets engagement, but then that engagement can start to roll over to some of your more meaningful posts for your business, then that's always great. So this seems, so if these are beyond my capability, when looking for someone to hire, should I ask for a social media marketer? Yes. So there's a couple of things that you want to understand if you're looking for somebody to take this on. Understanding, are you looking for somebody to post and manage your social media, or do you want somebody to kind of handle your digital marketing? They're kind of two different things. There's a lot of people that come out of programs that are really good at social media, meaning they know how to post content and they know how to run a social media platform, but they might not have the big picture thinking of like how this all connects together with your website, with SEO and those other elements. So just making sure you're getting really clear on what it is you're looking for. Are you looking for somebody to handle social media and that you're going to kind of help to drive the overall strategy? They might help a little bit. Or are you looking for somebody that's going to take a holistic view of everything that you're doing? So those are going to be kind of the key things to talk about. What about polls? Are they still popular on Facebook? Yes, polls are extremely valuable, both on Facebook and on Instagram. That, again, that's a really great way to get that engagement and to get people starting to have conversations. So polls are fantastic things for you to be able to do. As well on stories, they have the little stickers that you can put in there where you're asking questions and people can put custom responses. Anything that encourages that engagement is gold. Perfect. Earlier you mentioned that it's gamified to ask audience comments, either A or B option. What do you mean by gamified? So what I mean by gamified is that sometimes we look at social platforms as a popularity contest. And so what Facebook looks at is that if you were to post a question that says, what do you prefer, photo A or photo B? Now, if it's legit for your business, you see people all the time do this. They're like, do you like this design better than this? Or, do you like this headshot better than this headshot? If you're looking for honest feedback, then that's something that's going to be valuable to you to do for your content and for your research purposes. However, if you're doing that in a way to try and beat the algorithm to get that engagement, it's gamified because you're getting that engagement back, but Facebook will look at that to say people are putting in the same types of responses, and so it's not authentic engagement, meaning that it's kind of gamified because you're asking a question that is just quick little responses. It's not true conversation with people. So Facebook's going to look at that and say that we're not going to rank that as a comment the same way that you would if you were to ask an open-ended question and people were to reply in sentences. So that's how it's gamified, that you're getting the engagement, but Facebook knows that it's not true engagement where you're having meaningful conversation. And so that's where it's not going to get you kind of the social juice, if you want to call it, to kind of get those engagement points to get you more exposure on the algorithm. Does that make sense? Hopefully that kind of helps. The A/B gives you the engagement, but it's not the type of engagement the platforms are looking for. So it's not going to help you long term. Hopefully that makes sense. Perfect. Great question. Excellent. Anybody else have any additional questions? I see there's still a few of you here, so I just want to make sure if there's more questions, happy to answer them. If not, then I will hand it back over to Paula. Thank you everyone for your participation. Oh, Ashley had another one. Would asking for responses and stories generate a good algorithm? Yeah, so asking for responses and stories is always good. So the algorithm kind of looks at your stories as part of your platform within the algorithm. So whether it's on stories or a post, they both are kind of the same right now. So you're going to get kind of that engagement juice, if you want to call it that, in either place. The more that you can be getting those general, try and get responses that are 5 words or more. That's kind of the magic number. That there was a company that did like a huge assessment as to what they found to be the best type of engagement. And they said that they found anything that presented a response that was 5 words or more tended to be more successful than anything under that 5 words. So that's kind of the golden rule of what you would like to aim for. Again, it might not always happen, but that's what you want to try and do. And then same for your responses. So you don't want to go in there to just say, thank you, thank you, thank you. You want to try and give general responses back to be able to have that. If you even want to take it a step further, Facebook will give actually more credibility to accounts that if if two followers are having a conversation back and forth, not just you and the page. So if I happen to comment on one of your posts and then a friend of mine replies back to my comment and I have a conversation back and forth with them on your post, Facebook looks at that as golden conversation, and that can also help you as well too. That also will help with the affinity, that now it's going to be a lot more likely that me and the person that I'm having that conversation with are probably going to see your posts more, because now we've had a conversation on your content. So that all kind of plays in together. Great, excellent. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody again. I will hand it back over to Paula. And it has been a pleasure, and hopefully I'll get to do a few more of these webinars in the future, and see you all on a future one. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Kat, some excellent pieces of advice. The 4 E's and the 7 strategies are great takeaways that I think we can all implement quite easily and just be top of mind when we're posting on social media. So thank you, everyone, for joining, registering and joining. Stay tuned for more educational content like this coming out. In the, we can all get better, and if we take away something each and every time, just think of the power we'll be driving business step forward. So thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.